At dusk, the sky over Wrenhaven darkened in an oddly peaceful way. No bruised clouds rolling in, no ominous thunderheads swelling on the horizon. Instead, a silvery gauze seemed to glide above the fields and timbered roofs, casting the village in a luminous twilight. Most people went indoors, muttering about unseasonal weather, but the children gathered on the green, delighted by the flicker of blue-white light at the edges of the clouds. A solitary peal of thunder cracked, not loud or threatening, more like the resonant toll of a distant bell. A fine mist rose, and with it came feathers, thousands of them, tumbling and spiraling through the air. Each was no larger than a sparrow's plume, yet radiant with color. Red at one edge, orange shading into yellow at the shaft, green at the barbs, blue at the tip, and a final shimmer of violet at the outer fringe. They drifted down in gentle spirals, settling on rooftops, gateposts, and open hands. When the mist cleared, the sky was unbroken starlight again, as though the storm had been a single breath. People stared at the feathers in wonder. A baker named Petra held one up to the lantern hanging outside her shop. Its colors seemed to pulse, and she felt a quiet strength in her chest, as though some distant chime had rung inside her. She tucked it behind her ear reflexively, startled when the warmth in her chest spread through her arms, making her need to do something fine and selfless. That night, Elder Hiram, the village's gray-bearded magistrate, called an emergency meeting in the longhouse. Citizens packed the benches, many clutching feathers in their fists or tucking them carefully into buttonholes. Hiram rapped his cane for silence. "I've spoken with the lore-keeper in Thistledown," he announced, "and she tells me these are pride feathers, a token from the upper realms, so the old stories claim. Each feather gifts its bearer the power to perform one noble act beyond ordinary ability. Only one. Once that deed is done, the feather turns to gray ash." Murmurs surged. An apprentice blacksmith named Orin held up his hand. "What counts as a noble act?" Hiram spread his arms. "Something that leaves the world better than it was. The feather doesn't grant wishes, nor does it obey selfish intent. It amplifies courage, acuity, compassion, whatever virtue guides you. So if you try to line your purse, you'll get nothing. Try to save a life, mend a grief, halt an injustice, and you shall have strength you never believed you possessed." The oldest voices muttered about trickery. The youngest whispered about heroism. Pearl's own gaze swept the room. "We have 93 feathers recorded," he said. "Perhaps more lie undiscovered. Each can shift the course of this village if used wisely, but one foolhardy impulse could ruin what is good about Wrenhaven. So I propose a plan. Each household shall store its feathers in the lockbox at Town Hall. A council of 7 will decide when a feather may be drawn and by whom." Immediately, protests erupted. Cries of "private rights," suspicious squints at the very idea of surrendering such dazzling tokens. Petra the baker stood on a bench. "I've already felt a feather stirring in me," she declared. "If I must wait on a council's say-so, what if the moment passes? Virtue often needs quick feet." On the other side, Widow Maris, who feared her neighbor's opportunistic nephews, exclaimed, "If everyone acts on whim, we'll tear ourselves apart, each chasing our own sense of glory." The debate went on until stars tilted overhead. Finally, the assembly voted, but by a narrow margin, 52 in favor of Hiram's council, 47 opposed, with several abstentions. A compromise emerged. Households might keep one feather in private. The rest, if one had more than one, would be deposited for communal deliberation. That meant 51 feathers in the lockbox, leaving 42 in pockets, boots, and underpillows. 7 council seats were filled by midnight. Hiram, Petra the baker, Orin the blacksmith's apprentice, Widow Maris, Father Killian from the chapel, Dane, a healer who'd returned from war, and young Sarai, barely 16 yet famed for her truth-telling. Their charge was simple but impossible. Let each feather lead to a noble deed greater than its cost. The first test arrived 2 mornings later. Water levels in the river had risen overnight, threatening to flood the low quarter. Townsfolk stacked sandbags while thunderclouds massed upstream. Sarai rushed to the lockbox. "1 feather," she urged the council. "We could build a levee in half the time." Petra argued for spontaneity. I've still got my private feather. Let me use it. She raced toward the river, rainbow plume clutched like a standard. At first, nothing seemed different. She hefted an ordinary sandbag. But then, swirls of light danced around her arms. Each bag grew nearly weightless. She could lift 2, 3 at a time, passing them to others whose fatigue melted as the glow brushed their skin. Within an hour, the levee stood firm, the river surged, slapped the new barrier, then retreated sheepishly. When the danger passed, Petra's feather lost its luster, crumbling into gray dust that drifted to her feet. She watched it fall with mild sadness but greater satisfaction. Worth it, she said, wiping her brow. All nodded. First feather, well spent. Weeks rolled on, spring plowed toward summer. Stories of the pride feathers spread to neighboring towns. Peddlers arrived, sniffing for profit, offering coins or trinkets in exchange for the miraculous plumes. Rinhaven refused all purchase, but tensions brewed anew. Some villagers hoarded their private feathers more closely, others wondered if selling just one could fund a new bridge or school. Meanwhile, the council granted feathers for measured acts, one to healer Dane, who used it to halt a plague in the hamlet of Birkin. He touched 20 fevered children, drawing the sickness into himself, then knelt by the river until it leached away, leaving him pale yet alive. Another feather to Widow Mare, who brokered peace between 2 feuding clans by standing unarmed between their drawn blades. Her words infused with a luminescent calm that stilled hatred. Each time, feather to ash, ash to earth, and Wrenhaven's reputation brightened like its spring meadows. But human nature frets at limits. The more good deeds performed, the more requests poured in. A miller petitioned for help saving his failing crop. A mother begged a feather to search for her lost son in the northern wood. The mayor of distant Greymere wrote seeking assistance against bandits. The council convened nightly, faces drawn. One evening, Oren slammed the lockbox shut. "We have 20 feathers left," he said. "At this pace, they'll be gone before harvest." Sarai, braiding her dark hair, replied, "Perhaps they should be. Hoarded virtue is no virtue." "Virtue must also foresee tomorrow," Widow Maris countered. "What if winter brings famine? What if war knocks? We could need those feathers desperately." Elda Hiram listened, brow creased. How do we weigh the near against the far? 1 life now against 10 lives later? No one answered. The room felt smaller than its walls. That very night, a man named Corlin arrived at the east gate. His cloak ragged, eyes wild. He claimed to be from the capital, 2 days' ride, and bore a scroll sealed with the king's crest. Inside, a royal decree. Rebels had seized the mountain pass and threatened to march on smaller towns for supplies. Any settlement possessing means to aid the realm must send what help it could. Corlan bowed low. "Word is, you hold artifacts of old power. Soldiers who could ride with your feathers might break the rebel line before battle bloodies the valley." The council convened till dawn. Send feathers to a skirmish? Weaponize them? Some argued that preventing war itself was the highest noble action. Others recoiled at letting such gifts be used for killing. The decree lay heavy on the table like a blade. Sarai finally murmured, "What if we're being tested? The realm asks for help, yet perhaps the higher virtue is mercy over force." Hiram tapped his cane. "We promise to shape Wrenhaven's future, not topple kingdoms. Feathers or no, our young ones need harvest brought in. We can't drain ourselves to feed the king's quarrels." But declining a royal decree risked reprisal. The meeting adjourned unresolved. Feathers remained locked. Petra, long since featherless, listened from the back. She saw the distress lines on Oren's broad face, the droop of Widow Maris's shoulders. She realized the council bore a weight too dense for 7 sets of bones. Next morning, she baked 30 honey loaves and set them on the longhouse steps, each wrapped in linen and tied with a colored string. Alongside, she nailed a note. "Come, break bread. We decide together, Petra." By dusk, nearly the whole village assembled. Corlin, royal courier, stood to present the decree anew. Then Petra asked a question: "What is a noble deed, and who decides that word? A king, a council, or the heart bearing the feather?" People murmured. She continued, "The first feather saved our homes from the flood. No counsel was asked, only the need of the moment. Since then, we have tied ourselves in knots, trying to be certain, yet certainty is more featherless than any of us." Sarai rose beside her. "I still trust the council," she said, "but I agree we are choking on caution. Maybe each bearer must vow aloud what they will do so all may witness." Hiram smiled faintly. An oath before neighbors, shared accountability instead of locked boxes. That may serve better than our strain. Orin added, yet feathers should not be carried out of Wrenhaven for warfare. If a soldier wants to use virtue, let him use his own heart. These feathers belong to peace. A vote was called. This time, by overwhelming voice, the town chose a new protocol. Each feather would stay with its household, but if one intended to use it, they must declare their purpose in the square at dawn, in front of at least 20 witnesses. Anyone could speak for or against. After hearing counsel, the bearer would decide. The town would trust that shared conscience to guide them. Corlin was offered lodging and a listening ear, but no feather. A letter of apology and an explanation of the resolution was drafted. The King Hiram signed it with trembling hand. Let the realm judge us, he sighed, but we stay true. Corlan returned to the capital. Weeks passed, no soldiers came. Rumor later said the rebels at the pass had dispersed, lured away by richer spoils, or perhaps pacified by other negotiations. Wrenhaven exhaled, its gamble seeming wise. Time revealed new needs. One morning, young Mila, the mother who'd pleaded months earlier, stood in the square with her rainbow feather. Her voice trembled as she swore to use it to find her missing son. Villagers had searched before, but hope had thinned. Now dozens volunteered, feeling the pull of her courage. They hiked the northern wood, guided by an uncanny sense radiating from the feather. It led them to a fern-hidden hollow where the boy lay injured but alive, trapped by a fallen log. They freed him, and the feather turned to ash in Mila's palm. No one begrudged its use. Another dawn, old Cooper Hensley declared he would employ his feather to repair the rotting bridge spanning the ravine to the western farmlands. Skeptics scoffed. Could virtue fix timbers? Hensley only smiled. All day he worked, tools flashing with iridescence, guiding younger carpenters, teaching them joinery secrets. By sundown, not only the bridge, but 4 neighboring barns stood strengthened. When the feather finally crumbled, apprentices could do in hours what used to take days. Each act knit the community tighter. People grew alert to silent suffering, stepping in before crises deepened. Feathers began to matter less than the ethos they inspired. Folks would often suspend using them, reasoning, let's attempt this ourselves first. Winter crept near. Granaries were full, the levees strong, the bridge sturdy, and the fever that once haunted Birken did not return. Yet unease fluttered beneath the village's calm. Only 5 feathers remained unspent. Every hearth wondered, should they save the last ones as talismans for generations unborn, or let them blaze now and accept tomorrow with ordinary courage? Snow fell early that year, thick and heavy. Mid-season, calamity struck. A mountain avalanche blocked the high pass leading to Wrenhaven's coal supply. Without coal, the smithy could not forge tools, the bakers could not heat ovens, and homes risked freezing. Worse, a family of trappers was believed caught beyond the pass. Rescue wagons could not reach them. The council, though technically dissolved, met informally in Petra's bakery, warmed from wood-filled stoves that still had fuel. Hiram coughed, older than when the feathers first arrived. Here is a challenge large enough, he rasped. One of the last feathers might clear the pass. But Orin shook his head. We'd still need sleds to haul coal after. The feather could vanish first shift of snow. Sarai, ever direct, asked how many feathers remain exactly. They counted 5. 4 in private hands, 1 kept by Father Killian. Owners were summoned. They arrived. Father Killian with his solemn eyes, Tamsin the midwife, a timid schoolteacher named Rook, Lorik, a woodsman, and Evangeline, daughter of the mayor of Greymere, who had married into Wrenhaven last summer. All gathered in the square at dawn, scarves wrapped tight. 30 witnesses braved the cold. One by one, the feather bearers declared how they might address the crisis. Father Killian proposed using his to melt the snow, opening the pass. Lorik believed his knowledge of mountain trails, amplified by the feather, could lead a caravan over a lesser-known route. Tamsin offered a different concern. If houses freeze, infants and elders die first. I can use the feather to raise safe, smokeless heat indoors. Rook spoke softly. Heavy snow broke the school roof. He wished to rebuild it, reasoning that children's learning should not cease, even in hardship. Evangeline's voice trembled least. Let us use no feather, she said. We have shovels, strong backs, and community. Reserve the plumes for a despair we truly cannot meet. Debate rippled. Children tugged coats. Elders stamped their feet to stay warm. The mountain trapper's peril gnawed on everyone's conscience. Yet so did the specter of frost, famine, or future unknowns. It was the distilled dilemma of the feathers themselves. And the answer came not from the council, but from Healer Dane, featherless these many months. "We are thinking like hoarders again," he said. "Which choice is safest for the feathers, not the people? The storm that blessed us did not withhold. It gave freely, expecting us to trust in the cycle of giving. Spend them. The world will send more storms, or perhaps it will shape us into the kind of people who need no feathers." Silence. Snowflakes spun like whispers. Father Killian nodded first. He stepped forward, pressed his feather to Loric's rough palm. "Combine our intentions, your trailcraft with the element of clearing." Two remained firm that life at stake in the mountains trumped comfort indoors or education deferred. Tamsin and Rook yielded, agreeing they could find wood for heat, salvage shingles for a school roof, if only lives were saved. They set out that noon. Lorik led with uncanny precision. Father Killian walked behind, feather tucked in his mitten. As they reached the snowbound pass, the plume flared, radiating warmth through the frigid air. Snow softened, sluiced aside, revealing buried markers. Their party shoveled, advanced, shoveled again. 3 miles in, they found the trapped family huddled in a makeshift cave. Fire long since died. The feathers' glow spread like sunrise in winter, pouring into the hypothermic bodies, stoking hearts. They walked them home on improvised sleds and by nightfall reached Wrenhaven. At the town gate, the feather turned to ash, drifting onto the snow like gentle soot. Cheers met them. Ovens were cold in many houses, but neighbors shared stews heated on communal fires. Rook turned lessons into tales by hearthside. Tamsin delivered a breech calf in a barn warmed by straw and 30 singing voices. Hardship pressed, but the people pressed back together, feather or none. Spring eventually cracked the ice. Coal caravans returned. The school roof was fixed. New babies thrived. When cherry trees bloomed, Hiram passed away in his sleep, smiling as though still hearing that first distant thunder bell. At his funeral, Sarai spoke. "Elder Hiram taught us that a town is shaped less by miracles than by the choices we make when miracles arrive. The feathers gave us a chance to reveal what already slept in our chests. Now the storm that brought them is memory, but its lesson breathes in our daily bread." Petra distributed loaves again, this time braided with 7 strands in honor of the council. Oren forged a plaque for the square, an iron feather, rainbow hues painted in glass enamel. Below it read, "One noble act per heart every day, no feather required." Years later, travelers would pause beneath that plaque asking where the original feathers were kept. Townsfolk would smile, spent, each and every one, like candles burned to give light. They might then offer bread or directions or medicine or a place to rest. And sometimes on clear evenings, the sky over Wrenhaven shimmered just faintly prism-colored, as though invisible wings still beat there, pleased with how humans had learned to fly without them.